Welcome to REIunite. I'm your host, Ryan Polakaitis, and I'm here with a very special guest today, Lenny Hernandez. Lenny is a tax lien investor and a sheriff sale investor. He's here with flippingnj.com, and today we're going to talk a little bit about tax lien investing. Lenny, before we jump into today's conversation, can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved with real estate?
Absolutely. I used to work in the city. I worked in Manhattan prior to 9/11. Once, obviously, 9/11 happened, I was out of a job. So I had already dabbled a little bit in rental properties and stuff. I decided to go full time on just doing more real estate, rehabbing, finding properties for friends and family and stuff. And that's how I really got involved in doing real estate.
So you were like a bird dog, so to speak.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
So tell me, Lenny, why tax lien investing?
Tax liens, it seemed like back then everybody was doing fixing up properties, renovating them, just getting them from the same sources. The MLS at the time, the MLS, and at the time it was, when I was doing it, it was AOL. AOL was like the Craigslist, right? Back then. So
Sure.
I wanted to try something different. So I started dabbling in tax liens, tax lien foreclosures. Well, not really tax lien foreclosures, but just tax liens, trying to understand that whole process.
Okay. So for those that are new that just know about tax lien, why don't you explain a little bit what tax lien investing is?
Well, what it is everybody pays their taxes on their houses, municipal taxes, your sewer, stuff like that, property taxes. And what happens is if you stop paying the taxes, then the towns, every municipality is separate, brings it to, twice a year to a tax sale. And they put it out there. And then different investors start bidding on these particular properties. And what usually happens, it's called, it's a process of downbidding. It starts off at 18%, and people start bidding till sometimes it goes to zero. Sometimes you pay premiums just to buy a tax lien.
Okay. So just to kind of go into a little more detail. So if a homeowner stops paying on their taxes, what happens is the town will auction off these tax lien certificates, correct?
Correct.
So it's a way for the town to still generate revenue and for investors to get potentially a high return on their investment.
Absolutely.
And so they'll start off at 18%. So it's almost, I don't know what the technical term, it's almost like a reverse auction, you'd say, right?
100%.
Okay.
100%.
So they'll start the bidding at, and I guess, is it like that? I mean, are you familiar with other tax lien, other states, or is it 18% across the board, or is that only certain counties or towns, or just New Jersey?
Here with New Jersey, and New Jersey, 18%. That's the highest amount you can actually get here as a tax lien investor.
Okay, so when you go there, they'll start the bidding at 18%, and you come in as the investor, and other investors, you'll actually bid down this
Correct.
percentage. So what does that mean exactly when you're bidding down?
So if you start bidding on a property, there's big corporations that buy these because it's good interest on their money, right? So if I see a property, I actually research every property that I'm bidding on. I go after properties that seem vacant. I go after properties that haven't been listed or anything like that, because I guess from my experience, about 97% of all tax liens get redeemed, right? So
Right.
if you're just, a lot of people bid on these thinking that they're going to get the property, and it's very rare that you actually get the property. The only way you get the property is if there was no mortgage on the property, for one thing, because remember the lender is going to protect their position, right? Because taxes supersede everything else. So if let's say for whatever reason, somebody hasn't paid their taxes in a whole year, that happens, and let's say the person changed mortgage companies, which this is something common that happens. Sometimes it gets lost in the paperwork or whatever, and you can go a year without paying the actual property taxes. But when a lender starts getting all the notices of foreclosure or whatever, the lender will come in and take care of the tax lien.
Okay.
for the property owner itself.
Right. So there's different ways in which investors will come and bid on these tax certificates. Well, I should say for different purposes, right? So
Correct.
some people want to go to this tax lien auction and they're thinking, okay, I'm going to bid down, even if it's down to 0%, which means they're not going to get any interest. They're hoping that they're going to do a tax lien foreclosure on that property, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And then there's another school of thought per se, or another avenue, which says, okay, I don't really want the property. I want to get my high interest rate for my return on my investment.
Correct. Correct. Which isn't a bad, it's a lot better than the bank does, right?
Right.
Depending on how high you pay for a premium. I've seen houses that people have been interested in that, let's say they only owed, I don't know, $1,000. I've seen people pay $10, $15, $20,000 for something like that.
Okay, so for those, again, our listeners are probably really new. They're probably saying, what's a premium? Why don't you explain briefly what a premium is and what that means?
What happens is when you start bidding down the interest, because what you're doing is you would love to get it at 18% all the time, but when you start bidding down the interest, it goes from 18 all the way to 0. Once it goes to 0, then you start bidding $100, $200, and you start going up. You're actually paying this premium. So you would say, some people would go shoot right to 1,000, and somebody would say 1,500 or whatever. That can go up to as high as it can go, right?
Mm-hmm.
The town keeps that money. The municipality keeps that money until that's what they use for. They kind of borrow that money. That money gets returned back to the investor when the property gets redeemed. If the investor ends up getting the property, foreclosing on the property, the town actually keeps that money.
Okay, so that premium, the reason why they're paying this premium again is probably for intentions of we want to acquire that property.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
so once the town redeems it, you're saying that premium, whatever it may be, will get repaid to the investor unless it actually gets foreclosed on the possession.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, when you have these big corporations, as I imagine are coming to these auctions as well, and they're bidding giant premiums, I mean, they have to do their due diligence to say, okay, this is in essence, if we're going to go ahead and obtain the property, that falls in line with what they're looking to pay. I mean, I've seen premiums 15, 20 grand in areas like Bergen County and stuff.
Correct. You're right.
Okay.
And everybody goes with the intention on acquiring the property, but I know that it doesn't happen that easy. The only properties that I've been able to get like that are properties that I already knew a little bit of the history. I ran title on the property to see if there was a mortgage. I've done things like that. Vacant properties, an inherited property, stuff like that.
Right. So, the increased motivation is, a house that's vacant and boarded up or just neglected is less likely to be redeemed than somebody who's their primary residence.
Correct. And I always check to see if it was listed too.
Okay. So if it's listed, then that shows intention that they're
correct. I don't even bid on properties that have been listed.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
No. I don't bid on any properties because I know they're going to redeem the property.
Okay, and unless, of course, you can get at the high interest rate, and that's the return on investment you're looking for.
Correct.
Okay, so let me ask. I mean, I've never been personally to a tax lien auction. I've been to the sheriff sales. I mean, what can you expect when you go there? What's the atmosphere? Who attends these? There's a ton of people. Is it a few people?
It's a lot of people. It's a lot of corporations. There's a lot of hedge funds are starting to go there now, and all types of groups. You have your mom and pop that go over there. You have the investors that go to every single tax sale. Big corporations go there, and then you got guys like me. We're not really buying a lot. But we're targeting a particular property, and just like anything else, you could build a relationship with other investors there. They're used to seeing you. And, maybe they won't bid you up because
right.
Exactly.
They'll let you get one or so. So let me ask you this: for the corporations that are doing this, I imagine that they have entire sections or in parts of their organization that are just dedicated to researching these tax liens, and they're coming with large sums of money. I mean, how do you compete with these kind of giant corporations and hedge funds?
Well, the good thing is that that sometimes, you know, I try to sit near the front, right? So they don't have a way of really, everybody's yelling out their percentage, what they're looking to get. So these things happen so quick. Unlike sheriff sales, where everything's slow and they announce everything, you can go through, I don't know, they go through maybe 100, 200 tax liens in, very quickly. So you get lucky. I've gotten lucky, but everyone that I particularly am looking to bid on are ones that, that I had already researched. So if I went there with like 30, 40 properties and I only got two, then that's good for me. I expect.
Right. Right. So you're hoping that maybe because of the frenzy kind of auction it is, that maybe it'll just fall through the cracks, so to speak,
Correct.
and you're just waiting for that one that you were looking at.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What are some of the basics, like for somebody that's looking to get into it? We already have what to expect at the auctions, who's going to attend. What are some of the basics? Maybe what are some of the things to, some of the risks and things to watch out for?
Well, one of the risks that you should definitely know is when you're bidding on these tax sales, if you don't research, remember, sometimes people have, two lots on their property. One of them can be a little piece of a driveway, 16 feet or something. So what I see a lot of mistakes, including I've done this myself, is bidding on something that I thought was the property, but it was really just a portion of that particular property. Like
Right.
backyard or whatever. And you really can't do anything that even if you foreclose on it, it's really worthless.
Right.
Correct.
What would you do in a situation like that? Try to work something out with them?
Talk to the owner, because if they have a mortgage, their mortgage company is going to want to pay it off. Those you really don't make any money on, but you limit your loss because the owner does need that.
Right.
That's a very common mistake, actually.
Gotcha. And that probably happens mostly with the new people that are just trying to come in and they're in the frenzy and also, hey, I have the ability to bid on this, and they make a mistake that way.
Correct. Some people have 3 lots on their property, right?
Right.
So you really you have to do your due diligence, and more than just Googling the address, looking at the tax lot and block, looking at the size, knowing 16 by 40 or 16 by 20 really doesn't sound like a property could fit on there. Just using like common sense stuff like that.
Right.
And driving by anything that they think is vacant or a good property.
Sure. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that, like starting the due diligence process? You get your list of certificates that are going to be sold at the auction. So what do you do? You just start. Do you start from using Google Maps, or do you? What's the whole process?
Well, we look at every single address that is there, anything that we recognize or anything like that, because we also do a lot of sheriff sales. We'll recognize some addresses, right? We look at specific towns that we're interested in, and then we start off by just Googling it and seeing what it is, right? We have access to the MLS, so we'll start looking through the MLS. We look through a lot of public announcements too. If you don't know what a public announcement is, or your audience doesn't know, it's what the town puts in a newspaper. To say if they're foreclosing on a property, or they have to put it in the newspaper. They have to advertise it. So we look through all stuff like that. Then we'll just start doing our comparables. What's the house worth? Things like that. Does the property? We start looking through list pendants. Each one of them is separate. If the house looks dilapidated, then that could be a whole nother process. We're looking into what happened. Where's the owner? We look through a lot of stuff because we don't look through. We're not targeting to get a couple hundred. We're only targeting to get a few. We
Right.
really don't work on 200 of them. We target the ones that we think will have a good shot in.
Right. So you'll narrow it down to 10 or 20, go there, bid, and
Correct.
hope to get one or two.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
that makes sense.
That's a good day, you know.
Right. Right. I mean, well, what are the percentages roughly? I mean, from how many you're actually evaluating to those that are actually become available and that you actually win?
You know, I'd say out of 10, let's say we go in there looking to get 20 of them. We might get one or two. Out of that one or two, let's say we're working on 10, maybe maybe out of 10, maybe two will become a situation where we might actually get the property
Right.
or be able to work out something or profit from it.
Right. And again, that goes back to what we talked earlier. I mean, somebody who's living in the house is less likely to just forfeit over their house due to taxes
Right.
versus somebody who's abandoned the house, or it's a house that needs a lot of repairs, or one that was inherited and they're just
Correct.
out of state owner. So you take all this in consideration when you're doing your evaluation to say, okay, these ones are likely to be abandoned for good, and this is a good candidate that I will obtain the property. I have no problem bidding it to zero and potentially paying a premium.
Correct. Correct.
Right.
Right. And those properties too. Whenever we get a property, it doesn't stop there. Then you have to hire the right attorney. You can't have your regular attorney, just a residential real estate attorney, filing all the paperwork and doing all that stuff. Each thing has its order, right? So there's a handful of good attorneys that we use that specialize just in tax sale foreclosures, because even after you foreclose, right, which you can't start the foreclosure process till after 2 years, right? That's another thing.
Right.
Very important, actually. Even after that process, after you actually get final judgment is what we would consider a deed, right?
Correct.
Once you get final judgment, some title companies won't insure you till 3 months after. You get title insurance, but with a condition. So
Right.
you have to keep all that into consideration too.
Right. So actually, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but this is great information. So let's just back up a little bit here.
So,
You go to the auction, you win the auction. What are your next steps once you're saying, okay, now I own the tax certificate? What do you do? What's the process?
once we get the tax certificate, then we send out all the information to our attorney, where he has a copy of everything, and then he starts the process. He keeps it on in his files or whatever, and then we just start our process of paying the taxes and everything. But we give him a copy of everything that we have. I do that. It's probably not necessary. I do that so if I lose it, I know he has it. Right.
Right.
So
So you have to pay those taxes, or else those taxes will be sold, or that tax lien certificate will be sold at the next auction.
correct.
Correct.
As a lien holder, it's like common courtesy. You get all the subsequent taxes. If you want them, you get them. After let's say 2 quarters, then you can start buying all the taxes, the sewer, everything, and then it's all starts accumulating.
Okay, so you're saying once you own the tax certificate, the town will give you the ability to pay
All the
next.
subsequent taxes. Yep.
Okay. Now, what about if you came in, you went to the tax lien foreclosure, and somebody else bought a tax lien certificate at the prior sale, and now you bought this next one? How does that work out? Who is going to get, let's just say if the property does get surrendered through who has the rights to foreclose? Who's responsible for what taxes? How would that work out? Because I'm sure the way these are, it's probably come about at some point that one investor owns this quarter, another investor owns this quarter.
100%. Now, whoever gets to the 2 years first, and whoever files their paperwork, at the 2-year mark, you have to start filing your paperwork.
Right.
And that's all done. You're kind of like, there's really not a fast way to do it. The attorneys do it, right?
Right.
But because of it's the same. It goes through the same process through the court process, like a sheriff sale would. So it was taking a while. It was taking like 900 days before to actually foreclose on these properties. Now
Right.
it's a lot faster, right?
Right. So just to reiterate a little bit for our listeners, you have, you buy the tax lien certificate. Now, in order to acquire that property, assuming that you're not going to get paid off, like the person that's living there and, still has a lot of equity in the house, someone that has abandoned the property, you're probably going to get it back. But there is a process that you're talking about. Now, in New Jersey, you have 2 years that you have to wait before you can start the foreclosure process, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So in between that time, you're going to have to pay the tax lien certificates.
100%. You have
Right.
to pay all the subsequent taxes because you're right. As you said, somebody can pay a quarter. Then it gets very, very confusing. If,
Right.
say you have everything else and they have 1/4, then
So let's just say let's just go with that. And again, I've never done it. So let's just say you bought this month's tax lien certificate. Next quarter comes, you didn't, for whatever reason, get a chance or couldn't buy it. Some other investor does. Well, does the clock still tick as far as when you bought it?
Yes.
And then they could So, okay, the clock is ticking. Now we fast forward 2 years. Let's just say that other investor, for whatever reason, bought the next subsequent 2 and 3 quarters, and you only have one. Who has the rights to foreclose?
Well, once you start the foreclosure process, he has the right to pay to protect his position and pay off my lien.
So you, as the first lien holder who purchased it before him, have the right to foreclose before he does, even though he owns more certificates.
Correct.
Okay. So what he would have to do, he would have to pay you off in the event that he wanted a foreclosure and you didn't start the foreclosure process, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So assuming after 2 years you started the foreclosure process, then you were just going to pay him off.
Correct.
Okay.
That happens, actually. That happens all the time.
Right. Oh, well, that sounds like another, possible strategy. If you're low on capital and you say, well, you know what, I have the rights to foreclose on this, I'm protected. Hey, I don't mind getting my money back or whatever, maybe depending on the investment that you've done. Or you can go ahead and pay him off depending on if it still makes sense as far as the deal is concerned.
Correct. And I would say most investors that go there are really going there for the interest, really not for the property. I used to think it was the other way. A lot of new investors are going there for the property.
Right.
But the companies, the hedge funds, insurance companies, whatever,
right,
going in there just for the interest.
Right. And that's kind of interesting because it makes sense, with the low interest rates that they're giving in the bank. Who wouldn't want 18%, 12%, 16%? I guess the interesting thing is when you see these hedge funds where they're actually paying a large premium, I guess that's one of their primary businesses. That.
Correct. I've seen a lot go out of business, though, like that. Or maybe not go out of business, but change up their strategy. Because there's only so many premiums you can pay.
Sure.
Where it doesn't make sense anymore.
Right. That makes sense. So, okay, just following through let's just say you went ahead the 2 years, you filed foreclosure. I mean, during those time period, what about other possible liens? And what about municipal liens? What about the house itself? What if, I know some towns will actually, like Camden, for example, they'll knock down properties. I don't know. How does that affect? How would that play a part?
That's actually a good question. That's actually happened. There's a property in Clark. I don't remember the address, but it was dilapidated. It was very dilapidated.
Right.
And the town wanted to knock it down. So as being in first position and very close to, actually in this particular case, we had already started the foreclosure. We can fight that. We can, we had to take care of everything they needed to take care of, right? And everything that we're doing to the property to stop it from being knocked down is also now accruing at 18%.
Okay, so if whatever precautions you had to take, does that include attorney fees? Does that include anything involved?
Everything. Yep.
Again, assuming that you purchased it at 18%, or let's say you bid down to 2% or 0%. What everything following, is there any percentage on that, or everything follows what's in the certificate?
Well, the percentage increases next time you have a next quarter or whatever. If you got 0, then at the next quarter you're going to get 18%. That's how it works. So you're basically collecting. It's just for that time period that you're not going to get anything.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, let's say first quarter comes, you buy it. It's just say hypothetically saying it's 0%,
Right.
and then the next quarter comes, they give you first right to buy the tax lien, and you can
Correct.
get it at the full 18%.
Correct.
There's no, okay, got it.
So that's why a lot of people do it too.
Right. Well, that makes sense. That's okay. Well, I appreciate it, Lenny. That was a lot of good information. Why don't you tell our listeners maybe how they can get in touch with you or any programs that you offer, anything that they can get further information to connect with you if this is something that they want to get involved with or if they want to network with you.
Absolutely. They can check us out at flippingnj.com. Right. We have a toll-free number. I don't know what it is offhand, but it's on flippingnj.com.
So flipping NJ's FLIPPING.
Correct.
NJ.com.
Yep. And what we primarily buy properties to sell to other investors. So we're always looking for new properties, new people to do deals with, and new buyers. So.
Right. So if anyone who's looking to maybe get in this and do some dogging, let's say, or maybe looking to be boots on the ground for you potentially at these auctions, that would be something you. Oh,
100%.
Sounded like a hurricane there. Okay, great. So once again, that's flipping NJ, FLIPPING, NJ.com. And thanks a lot, Lenny. I appreciate it, and I look forward to having you on in the future for talk about share sales.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Ron.